the Overview and Scrutiny Committee of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. We are quorate, the quorum is 10 and we have 12 members present, so we can therefore begin. And I'd like to start by asking officers to present us with the list of apologies for the meeting.
Chair, we have received apologies from Councillor Mason, who is substituted by Councillor Miss Canlon, and we've received apologies from Councillor Connor and Councillor Scutt.
Thank you very much indeed, Anne. And I'm now going to ask for a roll call of all members. So when your name is read, could you please unmute yourself and say yes or present or yo or whatever else you want to say.
Okay, Councillor Chamberlain.
Present.
Councillor Coles.
I'm present, thank you.
Councillor Corney.
Present.
Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor Dupre.
Present.
Councillor Fain.
Present.
Councillor Gehring.
Present.
Councillor Hay.
Present.
Councillor Jordan.
Present.
Councillor Miscandlon.
Present.
Councillor Murphy.
Present.
Councillor Sharp.
Councillor Sharp.
Present. Sorry, can you hear me? Or
Yes,
Yeah.
we can now. Thank you.
I'll turn the volume up a bit.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, I just wanted to let you know that I have been experiencing internet problems with meetings over the weekend and also this morning. So although the law requires that we keep our video on where practicable, it may be possible that if my internet gets as dodgy as it has been, I might need to switch the video off to conserve bandwidth. I will try to avoid doing that if at all possible, but I may need to resort to that just so that you know. And the other note I wanted to make, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is that there is a chat window for members who are attending this on Zoom. It is only for for formal business such as points of order or requests to speak and so on, and it does form a formal part of the record of this meeting. So can I go on to item 2 then, and declarations of interest? Does anybody have any interests that they need to declare? Could you please use your blue hand to say so, or use the chat window if you haven't got a blue hand function? I don't see anybody. Okay, thank you very much. Now, the next item is that we need, due to the resignation of Councillor Kevin Price, who was the vice chair of this committee, we need to appoint a new vice chair of this committee. And so I would like to ask people whether there are any expressions of interest in that position. Constitutionally, the chairman of this committee cannot be of the same political persuasion as the mayor. There is no such bar on the vice chairman of the committee. However, if they are called upon to chair the committee, that may be a bit of an issue, and that is the reason why we need a vice chair to deputise for the chair. But with that in mind, then could I please have any expressions of interest or questions for Rochelle as our monitoring officer present today, if they have any questions they wish to ask. So I've got 2 people indicating that they wish to speak. Firstly, Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Chair. I'm willing to be considered, and I appreciate the issues that being the same colour as the mayor may cause some difficulties, but nevertheless, I think I do have some of the skills necessary.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coles. Councillor Murphy, you're next to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think we do need somebody who can work critically as a friend with the board and substitute for you and organise the meetings. And in their absence, I'd like to nominate Councillor Scutt from the County Council representative to do that. On the
Okay.
hope that it's unanimously agreed. I think we went through some issues elsewhere, and on that basis, I'd like to nominate her. If there's going to be any dissent, then I'm willing to put myself forward as somebody who's not seeking election to anything next year and for continuity.
Right, okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Gehring.
I think we need to look at the spirit of the combined authority constitution, not just the black letter in this case. And I think the spirit is such that, in my view, it's very, very difficult to fully represent the views of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee if you're of the same party persuasion as the mayor in those circumstances. And I would make the same point if the mayor were a Liberal Democrat. I think proper scrutiny, and especially in an area that is as large as our combined authority, means that we need to have the ability to ask critical questions and present critical views to the board, which sometimes is more difficult if at the same time you have the same person then wanting to support your re-election in the local elections in May. I think that creates difficulties.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gehring. Councillor Hay.
I take issue with what's just been said. It's almost like saying Councillor Coles would not act independently of the mayor. Yeah, it's besmirching his reputation, I believe, and I'd be perfectly happy for Councillor Coles to put his name forward. What I would ask is our legal representative to give her view on whether it would create a problem.
Right, okay, I'll go therefore to Rochelle. Rochelle, would you like to guide us on this, please?
Good morning, members of the committee. So the order regulating this area of law has no prohibition on the independence of the vice chair. It's actually silent on the vice chair. Equally, our constitution is silent on the issue of who the vice chair should be and what political party that person should be from. Of course, the committee would accept that there will be obvious difficulties in relation to some decision making and questions around independence and the lack thereof. So of course that must be observed as well in making your decision today. But as the law stands, there is no prohibition.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. Before I come to Councillor Davey, Councillor Fain has indicated in the chat that he wishes to say something. Councillor Fain.
Thank you, Chair. I have no hesitancy in accepting that Councillor Coles is very well qualified for this. I have a little nervousness about the situation that would occur were you as chair absent, and therefore Councillor Coles or anyone else was standing in for you. Councillor Murphy has said that he would be prepared to stand. I have a little nervousness too about accepting the nomination of anyone whose acceptance would be dependent on it being unanimous. Obviously, I can't anticipate what the result would be. But in those circumstances, if he would accept it from me, I would be very happy to nominate Councillor Murphy for the post of Vice Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Davey.
I, without wishing to in any way, shape or form be seen to be critical of Councillor Coles, I'm sure he'd do an excellent job. I think it goes back to Councillor Gehring's point. I think it makes sense to have representation from the two parties that aren't responsible for the mayor. I also would like to support Councillor Scutt, which is going to make this slightly more problematic for you, Chair, and apologies for this. I wonder if this could be taken out with this meeting and we come back at the later date, as we are requiring a vice chair at this particular meeting, and the discussions could take place with a view to getting something sorted for the next meeting of Overview and Scrutiny.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. I will ask those who have indicated to speak to do so, and then I will come back to Rochelle for a ruling or advice on whether that represents a sensible way forward. Councillor Miscandlin.
Thank you very much for that, Chair. I think it's quite, some of the remarks appertaining to Councillor Coles are quite actually insulting having been the chair on a committee overviewing scrutiny at Fenland, where there are other members, I have always, and I would expect him to do the same, always had an open mind on all discussions. To politicise it, I think is totally wrong, and I would actually support Councillor Coles to be the vice chairman, because I think he will bring a fresh mind and a fresh look at it, and I think he will remain very pragmatic in his decision making and forward thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chamberlain, and then I'll come to Councillor Corney.
Thank you, Chair. I was merely going to support and second Peter Fane's motion and support Councillor Ed Murphy as being our Vice Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Corney.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just like, I just from my piece on this would be, Rochelle's kindly sort of guided us in that there's no issue, sort of within the rules as such. I think the issues being made by us that are present. I think Councillor Coles would make a very good deputy chair, as I would from what I've been Councillor Murphy's sort of company. I'm sure he would as well. But I think we need to stop making issues ourselves and look at the rules that are in front of us.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Sorry, Rochelle, do you have any further guidance for us before I try to
Thank you,
guide
Chair.
the way forward on this?
Thank you, Chair. You do have nominations before you. If there was a problem at this meeting today, we would be without a Vice Chair. So my advice would be to proceed with your nominations and the vote today.
Okay, thank you very much, Rochelle. That's helpful. So if I can summarise where I think we are, we have a nomination of Councillor Coles with the issues that may bring us, that there is no bar to that appointment, but that there may be a practical issue if attendance at a meeting in the capacity of replacing the chair is required, but nonetheless there is no impediment to that appointment. We have the nomination of Councillor Scott, who appears to have made that contingent on being unopposed, and that is clearly not the case because there is an alternative nomination on the table. And therefore, I think, Rochelle, I'm correct in saying that we can at this stage discount that nomination because we have more than one applicant. Am I correct in that?
You are correct, yeah.
Thank you. So I think we need to discount at this stage the nomination of Councillor Scott, in that we cannot make that a unanimous nomination. And then we have the nomination of Councillor Murphy, who has put himself forward without such a criterion, and that is also a duly appropriate nomination to make. So therefore, we have two nominations. One is for Councillor Coles and one is for Councillor Murphy. And in that position, I would therefore suggest that we move to a vote between those two candidates, as we have been advised that we should, given that there are nominations, take a vote at this meeting. So in order to do that, I need,
Sorry, Chair, just a point of accuracy. I believe that Councillor Fane also nominated Councillor Murphy, and there was no condition on that nomination.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought that was what I had said, but clearly I didn't say it very clearly, that there are two valid nominations without condition, being Councillor Coles and Councillor Murphy, and that we need to move to a vote between those two. I have two blue hands that I see up, which is Councillor Chamberlain and Councillor Murphy. Councillor Chamberlain.
That was left up historically.
Okay. Legacy hand, it's called, isn't it?
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Chair. And yeah, let's move on. But my point, I think you've summed it up in your way quite well, was that could we just accept Councillor Scott as the Vice Chair and not have anything contested? If it's going to be contested, then I was prepared to stand. And I suppose that still remains the case, unless I and Councillor Coles can withdraw.
I'm not seeing any signs of withdrawal from anybody at this stage. And I'm holding my breath waiting, but I'm not seeing any indication that anybody wishes to withdraw. And therefore, I think we move to a vote between the two nominees that we have, namely Councillor Coles and Councillor Murphy. So who is going to roll call the vote? We'll read out the names of all members present, and then if you can indicate which of those two candidates you would be voting for, please. So Anne, are you taking us through this?
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed,
The
Anne.
names, and if you say the name of the member you'd like to be vice chair. Councillor Chamberlain.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Coles.
And myself?
Councillor Corney.
Councillor Cole.
Councillor Davey.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Dupre.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Fain.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Gehring.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Hay.
Councillor Cole.
Councillor Jordan.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Miscandlin.
Councillor Cole.
Councillor Murphy.
And myself.
And Councillor Sharp.
Councillor Coles.
So Councillor Ed Murphy has been elected the vice chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Anne. Congratulations to Councillor Murphy and commiserations to Councillor Coles. I think it's fair to say we had two very good candidates for that position, and the closeness of the vote attests to that. So thank you very much indeed, members, for the conduct of that election. So we then move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I take those firstly for accuracy? Are we happy to agree those as a correct record? If not, could you please indicate? So I think we're happy to take those as a correct record. Now, appended to those minutes are the answers that we received from the board to our questions that we put to the board at its September meeting. And I'm aware that there are at least a couple of the answers that we might wish to comment on or probe further. I want to say something about the answer to the first question, and then I think members may wish to say something about one or two of the other answers, and we may wish to take further action on these. The first question was about the representations made by the combined authority to central government about the quorum for the committee. As we know, we have a quorum of 2/3 of the membership, which means 10 members out of 14, and we have sometimes found that difficult. We have made continuous representations about this, I'm told, ever since this committee was established, but certainly throughout my time as chair for the last year and a half. And yet the answer that we're given starts off by saying that the board is not aware of any representations having been made to government. We have taken this up with the chief executives on several occasions. We've taken it up in meetings of this committee before, and it has been advised to us that that will be taken back. So I think I would like us to register and write to the board with our disappointment that the representations we have made over a period of time have seemed to have fallen on such stony ground that the board is not even aware that they have been made, and that we'd like to remind them of the urgency of this issue, and to ask them to advise us as soon as they get a response from central government on the representations they have now made. Councillor Fain, is your comment on this point?
Chair, just to note, perhaps being a little picky, that the board is not aware of any representations having been made to government. They're not actually saying that we haven't made any representations to the board, but I believe that that statement has in any case been overtaken in that a letter has been formally sent to government, as I understood, but perhaps I'm wrong on that.
No, I think you're correct. It's talking about not being aware of any representations being made to government. But my point is that we have requested on numerous occasions for them to make representations because they are the ones to do it. And if they're not aware that any representations have been made, then it is because they have not acted on the issue when it has been raised on numerous occasions by us. And that was the point I was trying to make. Are members happy that I work with the officers to agree an appropriate form of words to express our disappointment at this issue to the board and to the chief executives? Are we happy with that?
Yes.
Any dissent, let me know. Okay, I'm taking that as consent, thank you. And then there were a number of issues. I think people might have wanted to raise one or two other issues about the minutes, and particularly issues of transparency. Can I see any indication of anybody who wishes to speak on those points? Councillor Fane again.
It's a question of transparency of the business board. I'm a bit concerned that the answer given is that the business board reports to the full board, and that deals with the question of transparency. I'm not sure that in relation to this scrutiny committee, that does entirely deal with the question of transparency. It puts us, at the very least, at one remove. And I think we should ensure that the rules adopted by the business board are not only as transparent as possible, but are entirely compatible with those adopted by LEPs elsewhere, not all of whom, of course, are responding to a combined authority.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Gehring.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the answer that we received about transparency of the CAM Metro project. When we expressed concerns about transparency, not about setting up the special vehicle or a separate company, but about the operation of that company and how it will be possible for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the Task and Finish group within that committee to oversee the operation of that company going forward. And the question seems to have been either misunderstood or interpreted very narrowly. I don't think we were criticizing setting up the company. I think we were expressing concerns how to use our scrutiny powers effectively with a body that is at arm's length and over whose operations we have virtually no influence. And I say that as a member of the Task and Finish group on the CAM, having asked for information, having to really beg and plead in order to shed some light on how the project is going and how the decisions are being made. So I'm very concerned that we're falling into a trap whereby ever more operations are being handed over to private companies. And then we say, oh, there's business secrets and there's confidential business information, as we can see from the answer to the business board transparency, meaning that you could run the entire combined authority operation without any transparency. And I think that would be a real concern.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gehring. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, very briefly to support Councillor Gehring, I think it's important that there is transparency and openness. I wonder, as a practical way forward, Councillor Dupre, if a further conversation could be held with John Pye as the chair of the Audit and Governance Committee to ensure that they're content with the current processes and that how we oversee the work of the business board is done conjointly with the Audit and Governance Committee, and the proposals could go and come forward accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davey. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, I think that is a good way forward. It was Audit and Governance that raised this formally, and it's their remit about the business board. We have had that response, and there's other papers that say, look, this is the way we're doing it, and a lot of things would be secret anyway, so it could be cumbersome. What it hasn't said is what's done elsewhere, where the Nolan principles are implemented and business board work and let work is far more transparent. Let's not rake over what's gone in the past. A lot of the people who sit on the board obviously have discussed issues that involve funding their own organisations. So I think what we would like would be in the future to have transparency, and so declarations of interest are clear. It may be a cultural change for some of the members that they will have to start adopting principles of Nolan and transparency and working in the public forum. But I think that's only a good thing.
Okay.
And recently there was a motion at Peterborough City Council about the particular item. So it has raised interest among councillors in Peterborough, certainly.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fane, I think, is that a legacy hand, or are you wanting to speak? It's a legacy hand. And Councillor Murphy, your hand is up again. Sorry, I'm right. Okay, I don't think either of you is wishing to speak again. Therefore, there have been two issues raised there apart from the quorum. Firstly, well, we've settled the issue of the quorum. I will work with officers to take that up as an issue. The business board transparency, you have suggested that I have a discussion with John Pye as Chair of Audit and Governance, and with your consent, I'm happy to go away and do that. The other issue was about how we use our powers of scrutiny over the CAM special purpose vehicle, as I understood Councillor Gehring to be saying. And could I suggest that a way forward on that might be to have a short paper to our November meeting specifically on that point? If we could ask Rochelle and Anne and whoever else is the various officers involved in that to bring a brief paper to next month explaining what our powers of scrutiny are and how we can best utilize them to scrutinize the SPV. That might be a useful short focus of discussion. It's not an enormously long meeting, she says, perhaps tempting Providence next month. So maybe that might be a way forward. Do you agree that that's a sensible thing to do? Yeah. Councillor Jordan.
Yes, I think it is a very good way to go forward. I think the open and transparency and scrutiny is as much for their benefit as ours. It is a partnership which has been spoken about by other councillors about being a critical friend. And I think it is a positive way to go forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Jordan. So that's agreed. Councillor Jordan, you also wanted to say something briefly about the something in the minutes relating
yes,
to
it was
climate.
only a comment on the climate change, and I should really place on record my thanks to Robert Fox for sending the answers and the connection to it so I could go through it all. But I think there was just a concern that even though all the concerns were given, good exposure and questions were asked, but how should they be taken forward? I wasn't sure about that. It sounded to me that given the report as being outside the remit of the chair, Baroness Brown, and I was just a little bit concerned about that. That's all. It was just a pure comment, but definitely thank you to Robert for sending that all through to me.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Robert, for that. Okay, so I think we've done that item to completeness. And I'd like, therefore, to move on to item 4, which is public questions. And I believe we have no public questions. Is that correct?
No public questions received.
Thank you very much. So then we move on to item 5, which is Director of Business and Skills to present a report to us on the remit of that directorate. So I think we're welcoming John T. Hill into the meeting. Is he with us?
I am indeed. How do you do?
Oh,
Nice to meet you, gentlemen. Can you hear me okay?
we are slightly faint, but we can hear you. So yes, thank you very much
Okay,
for joining us.
I'll
Like
speak
to...
more robustly. If Robert's on, could he give me the host so I can share my screen?
Yes, John, I've just made you co-host, so you should be able to do it now.
Jolly good. Could you tell me how to share my screen in Zoom?
If you go to the bottom of your screen, there's a panel that will say
Yeah,
things
got
like
it.
participants polls, so it's just the green share screen one.
Yeah, great. Do you have that? Okay, hold on.
Probably, there we go.
Okie dokie. And is that now full screen?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely, lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to explain what the current levels of activities are for business and skills. I was asked to try and create some sort of graphic to link all the projects together into some sort of strategy, and I promise there is one. And I've come up with a solution to that, which I hope you'll like. Right. What slide are you looking at?
We've got your main front slide.
All right. Okay.
It's not moving forward.
No, indeed. Okay, we'll do it a slightly different way. Okay, right, that seems to be working. Okay, so the goal of business and skills is indeed to raise prosperity. The way we focus and measure on that is GVA per head. You will see from this graph that this is been used a lot, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this. It shows Cambridge City leading, of course, in prosperity and GVA per head across the city. That is not to say there aren't pockets of deprivation either. And it shows the rest of the area in a pack lower down. So fundamentally, the local industrial strategy of some time ago gave us the objective of actually raising the GVA per head, and hence prosperity, and hence opportunity in all the other areas, whilst of course making sure that we do protect our asset, which is Cambridge City. The LIS local industrial strategy also gave us a blueprint of roughly how to do that, and that was basically by trying to expand the clusters that had made Cambridge so successful in the first place. And the big thing that we've been working on in the last year or so is to get that yin and yang balance right between supply side skills, which are significantly lower in the northern part of the economy, but also the demand side jobs of the equation. For instance, one of the things I'll be talking about is a university in Peterborough, and all the work we're doing in Fenland, Peterborough and Huntingdonshire to raise skills relative to Cambridge City and South Cambridge. But all of that is absolutely to no avail if you don't also create more high value knowledge intensive jobs for those higher skilled people to go to. You must have both sides of the equation. And what I'll be presenting today is our attempt to get that balance right. So this is our graphic that tries to explain all the different projects that we're running. Across the top there, we have the main skills interventions, which are around adult education. We've got £11.5 million a year, and that's really about upskilling the workforce, and particularly the lower end skills of people with no qualifications and low qualifications, getting them up to a basic level. We're lobbying very hard to get the lifetime skills guarantee funding, which could be twice as much funding, that is more about a little bit higher level skills at level 3. In fact, it is guaranteeing everyone, all citizens, the opportunity to get a level 3, so A levels equivalent qualification, and particularly around vocational and work. We have got a very innovative approach to apprenticeships. We've led the other mayoral combined authorities, and West Midlands are fast on our heels in creating an apprenticeship levy marketplace, whereby we are unlocking the 83% of the apprenticeship levy that is completely unused, and transferring it from the large companies who own the apprenticeship levy to the small companies who need it. And we're doing that by creating a marketplace of getting the large companies to commit to give us their levy funding, and then we transfer it to the small companies. And that's working well. At level 6, so degrees and masters at level 7, we're trying to address the cold spot, the HE cold spot in the north of the economy by creating a university in Peterborough, and I can answer questions on that later. The red block is a combined set of interventions that we are launching in November called the Business Growth Service. It targets the 6% of companies in our economy that actually create 50% of the economic growth and the jobs growth, high growth companies themselves. So we target those that can make the most difference, and we give them growth coaching, identifying what are the barriers to their success and their growth, and try and help them overcome those barriers. We have a skills brokerage in there that links them to schools and FE colleges and Job Centre Plus to try and get the skills in to backfill the growth. If you grow in revenue, you need more humans to do the work. And third, there we are looking to we are also creating an inward investment agency to attract new companies into the area. Of course, it's important that we grow the companies in the area, but it's also important to attract new ones in, whether that's internationally, probably into Cambridge and South Cambs, or nationally, probably into Peterborough and Fenland, or even regionally from other parts of East Anglia and Lincolnshire, for instance. The other two interventions in the Business Growth Service are basically money, either grants to help people innovate and create new products that can drive growth. That's the innovation grant on the left there, or relocation grants to oil the wheels of companies looking to relocate here and talk to us. And then on the right there, the capital grant is quite simply if we're finding really great companies or we're attracting them into the area, then we've got grants to help them grow by kit or expand their premises so they can grow. So we coach them, and we have capital growth grants to finance their growth. In the middle there, strategic investments, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail in a second. We have a pot of money which we have just expended, 147 million in total, which we must have spent by the 31st of March 2021. And that is split in a way that I'll explain in a second. But the general focus of it here is place-based investment on towns and cities, on scale-up space, and on innovation. And I can give you some more detail now on how we're spending that money. So there are 5 pillars of productivity. They are business environment, ideas, which means innovation, infrastructure, which roads, stuff like that, houses, skills, of course, and then sustainability. The way we invest our money is in those 5 pillars, but we call them something a little bit more straightforward, which is basically under business, we try and accelerate the startups, the scale-ups and the setups to grow faster. On ideas, we try and target the really high-tech, innovative companies and get them to grow faster. On infrastructure, we are looking to accelerate recovery in construction faster, and of course retraining. And across all of that, the fifth one there is we try and do all of that with an eye to sustainability in either the way we're constructing the buildings relating to our projects, or actually having climate change focused projects. And much of what we're doing in funding the innovation is on net zero technologies. There is now a set of tables which I'm not asking you to look at in detail. I'm just going to ask you to look at the yellow boxes, which here is our first pillar, which is accelerating those startups, the scale-ups and the setups. And basically, we're either giving growth grants to lots of different companies, or we're setting up something called tech accelerators, which are a little bit like an incubator in that they have high-tech companies sitting in them, but the difference is they'll be hosted by a sector-leading organization. Let's take the second one there, Illumina, which are one of the biggest life science companies in the world and based in Granta Park. So we actually get a huge companies, and Philips in the Netherlands were the first ones to do this in the 80s. You get a really big company and they attract lots of small companies into an accelerator. And we also invest capital equity investments to both coach them, give them a place to live and learn, and to exchange knowledge in an environment, but also equity investments as well. So, and across our roughly 150 million that the LEP had and has now committed, about 20 million of that has gone into these types of startups and scale-ups. And we're looking to have created just under 14,000 jobs. Then we've got the super high techs in terms of incubators and innovation centres. And we've spent 37 million on different incubation and innovation centres around biomed, around agriculture and agri-tech, around mechanical engineering and other types of engineering, and indeed net zero technologies here. And we hope to have created, or will create over the next 5 years, 38,000 jobs from our roughly £38,000 worth of investment. And that's pretty much best in class across the company, across LEPs. Some LEPs are investing at £20,000 per job. We've selected a set of interventions that are benchmarked at £5,000 a job, and indeed these are only £1,000 a job. So this is pretty much across the LEP network best practice. Then we've got infrastructure projects, which don't have anything like the same job creation, but they are there to create larger amounts of infrastructure and getting people from A to B so that that can feed growth in different settlements. And then finally on skills, we've created a number of apprenticeship academies from construction with Cambridge Regional College there, with food processing there, with, of course, the University of Cambridge, with advanced manufacturing up there, and also adult education centres, for instance, in March. And we've spent £32 million there, and these aren't, and these are jobs as well. And there are around 50% more in skills and in terms of skills outcomes, for instance, a qualification. So over the whole of our local growth fund, we've spent 152 million, and we hope to generate around 56,000 jobs. the diluting effect tends to be the skills interventions, which have lower levels of jobs, and of course the infrastructure interventions that also do. Looking at the bigger picture and coming to a close, what the combined authority offers, I think, as an opportunity in comparison to the average LEP, is to connect up all these different interventions. So we find someone or we attract someone into the area through inward investment from a different country. We grow them to grow. We connect them with the skills. We give them growth capital to invest. We feed apprenticeships and adult education into them. The knack here is to integrate all of what we're doing within business and skills. But then the really clever thing is we then actually have a connected housing policy that is putting the houses where we're trying to create jobs, or put it another way, we're not stupid enough to try and create jobs where the houses aren't, because then you get the effect you've got in Cambridge, where house prices shoot through the roof because you've got too many jobs, and well, not too many jobs, you've got very, very low unemployment at very high GVA per head, but also the transport. Not everyone can live next door to their job, so getting the roads and the rail systems in such a place that within 30 minutes you can get to a good job. And hopefully, as a result, we will improve and de-risk our GEM, which is Greater Cambridge. Also get growth more evenly over our economy, both in terms of sector and in terms of socioeconomics and in terms of geography. And to do that by replicating and expanding the networks that have made Cambridge so successful. And that's it. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you very much indeed, John. If we could stop the screen sharing now, I think, so that we can get back to our normal view. Thank you very much indeed. That's very helpful. Thank you for that presentation, John. That's useful. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the presentation? I'm going to take Councillor Miscandlon, who has his hand up, and then Councillor Jordan.
Thank you very much, Liz. Good morning, John. I'm a great advocate of apprenticeships because I serve one myself in the aerospace industry. How are you approaching firms within Fenland in terms of apprenticeships, and what is the uptake?
I am also an apprentice councillor, so I agree with everything you said about the importance of apprenticeships. The uptake in Fenland is roughly the same as it is elsewhere. We are helped actually because Department for Education has funded us with additional resources in Fenland because it is an opportunity area. So we have more skilled brokers in Fenland to stimulate apprenticeships than we have per capita in other areas. But actually the current take-up of apprenticeships is pretty even across the different economies we've got, but it is low. And I'm sure you appreciate why it's low at the moment because of COVID. Yeah. And the government have put in place various things like Kickstart. The combined authority will be the local Kickstart representative that is giving or that is creating groups of 30 apprentices for different companies and giving companies funding to take on those apprenticeships.
Thank you. One other, you know, the Kingsdyke crossing is going. Jones Brothers said they would be offering apprenticeships in improving the skills of youngsters coming forward in construction. Is there any evidence that they have actually done that?
I don't know. I can get back to you on that. I haven't got the details on specific companies.
Thank you. And one of the next question is the relief road for Whittlesea, which at the moment is just Kingsdyke. Whittlesea Town Council Planning Committee, and I happen to be the chair of that planning committee, as well as being the chairman of Fenland District Council. Whittlesea is deprived of business investment. And that is because the companies cannot get to the industrial estates, which are one of the industrial estates, which is based in the south of the town. Is there anything going forward that could offer some form of hope to those companies who import and export large vehicles in and out of the current estate, endangering the members of the public because they have to go through housing areas and they are endangering it? Is there anything that can be done to alleviate that in getting a relief road to the south of Whittlesea and enabling the expansion of Whittlesea's industrial area to the benefit of all concerned?
Sure. I think you'd have to address that question to my colleague Paul Rains, the Transport Director.
Well, if you could take that forward, it was it, because at the moment, when a planning application comes forward for the Southern Industrial Estate, we are having to recommend refusal because of the increase in the vehicles in the limited infrastructure that Whittlesea has in that area. The western end one, which is by McCain's, that's perfectly okay, and the relief road for Kingsdyke will help that, but it will not help the south end of the south side of Whittlesea. So it's something that needs to come forward, and it will boost the employment which you're advocating, and hopefully it does go forward. That will boost the opportunities of companies to come to Whittlesea, because at the moment they say we won't come because the infrastructure is just not there to support us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miscandlon. Sounds like a perfect question for you to ask the Mayor in December. Councillor Jordan and then Councillor Fane.
Oh, hello, John. Do you have the report that we have in front of you?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So it's, I suppose it's page 19, the top. There's lots of figures there and facts, and I just wondered how they were calculated, how you predicted those, because I wasn't quite sure, and it's not my forte. And the second one was on the new University of Peterborough. It says the framework will be completed October 2020, and I wondered where we were with that, because October 2020 is just around the corner. So if you want to answer those two first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't actually have the exact one. I think you're talking about a table like that.
And that's how you predict it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I looked at that.
Okay. So the way we predict that is it is from the applicants' proposals for LGF. Okay. So that they actually tell us how they're going to grow, what sort of company, what sort of jobs they're going to put in, what sort of revenues they're going to get on, what sort of sales. We have two sets of independent evaluators, plus a Dragon's Den entrepreneur panel, and they basically scrutinise the proposals and basically, do I believe these applicants in terms of will they create those jobs? So the answers, the numbers you've got there are taken from the applicants, that has been scrutinised and deemed credible in terms of how many jobs they'll create from that project. However, we are now in our monitoring phase, so we're going back to all our applicants every year for 3 or 4 years and saying, okay, hey, listen, you said you were going to produce 500 jobs. Show me the national insurance certificates. Show me whether you've actually done that. So over the next 3 years, we'll actually be changing those forecast numbers into actual numbers, and hopefully we'll get more than we've said. I hope we won't get less, but we will see. University of Peterborough, I don't quite recognise the phrase framework in October.
It will be. It's called phase 2, funding allocation from Getting Building Fund secure. The application is being processed through the local growth fund assurance framework and will be complete.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it was on Monday. It went through, in fact, the Business Board extraordinary general meeting or extraordinary board meeting on Monday, and it goes to the main CA board sometime in November to get ratified, as all funding decisions of the Business Board are made. So yes, it has been approved by the Business Board.
Okay, thank you. And just one more, if I may. It was on your last slide about the bigger picture, And I was just wondering about the knock-on effect, you know, how reliant are they on each other? You know, how realistic is it, kind of? Or if one doesn't work, how does that have a knock-on effect on the other one? I know it's difficult because it's the bigger picture.
Yeah, quite. Whilst it looks complicated, because there are quite a few, well, there were 12 nodes there of different types of intervention, and to be honest with you, within each type of intervention there could be 5,000 companies and all sorts of things. So it is large and it is complex, but the benefit of that is the more diverse a system you have, the fewer reliances and catastrophic reliances you get, because you've got a broad enough portfolio that you can tolerate one thing not going ahead while the others are. So we think we've produced a diverse portfolio that can work and tolerate single point failures.
Okay, thank you for answering those.
Thank you. Councillor Fane.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for a very informative report, both in what we see in our papers and particularly in that presentation. I note you conclude on the question of integration of advice, which I think is very important. One aspect of that is that, of course, some other levels of local authority have been focusing on economic development. For instance, South Cambs has recently re-established an economic development unit. And my first question was to what extent we are integrating with your advice and work on this, and whether further measures are needed to ensure that there is not conflicting advice or support. I just wanted to ask briefly about three issues that I didn't see, I think, fully addressed, that I think need to be. I may have missed them, forgive me. The first is, of course, COP26 coming up, and clearly businesses are needing to look at their ability to adjust to zero carbon and to the various targets that the Mayor and others have set. The second is the effect of COVID-19 on the way we work, including in public transport. I think most of us had assumed this might be quite a short-term effect, and I'm beginning to understand now that actually it will have very long-term effects, and in particular, inevitably, lockdowns, depending on which tier we reach, will have very significant effect on some sectors which may need to be restarted. And the third area might be, of course, none of us know what our future trade relationship will be with the EU, and that uncertainty must have significant impact on plans both for inward investment and, of course, for labour force availability. And I wonder to what extent those effects can be taken into account, have already been taken into account.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fane. That's quite a bit. I'll step my way through those. In terms of, and let's take South Cambs as an example. In terms of joined upness, there are three ways we're joining up with our local authority partners. Taking Anne as a new ops director at South Cambs, we are first of all doing all business support as one brand and one service. So all customers will be serviced by the same service with the same brand, and we will work tactically with our local authority partners to target companies in their area, so they can either bring companies to us or we'll find them in our single front door. But we'll always tell our partners in South Cambs that we're working with a company and this is how we're working. And we will have a CRM, a customer relationship management system, that we'll share with all our local authority partners. So we all know what we're doing and we don't tread on each other's toes. Strategically, I'm sitting down with the Chief Exec and the Operations Director, or Chief Operating Officer, every 2 or 3 months to actually build a project pipeline for the longer term projects, where hopefully we get 200 million next time instead of 150 million. And in advance of getting that, which is probably in 2022, in April 2022, by the time we get anywhere close to that, I want to have created with my colleagues in South Cams a project pipeline where I know exactly what is strategic to them, and we're waiting for their proposal, and we can process it as soon as the CPCA have got money. We can be asking them for applications and funding their projects and working as a proper team. In terms of COVID, we have our local industrial strategy, which was created in 2019. I'm presenting on Wednesday our revamp of our local industrial strategy, which is called a LERS, which is a local economic recovery strategy for COVID. So we've taken all of our interventions that we designed over the course of 2019 and 20, and we've redesigned them all to be COVID enabling or COVID proof, if you will. And the last one was Brexit. And I'm not sure I can say a great deal about that. If we do go out with no deal, then we are already talking to BEIS about further funding that we can have to give companies very specific advice about this is the deal we've got, and this is the paperwork you need to trade. So there's no point in us trying to second guess it today, but as soon as we know what the deal does look like, we'll be right on all the companies, helping them with the information they need.
Thank you very much. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, and thank you, John. I thought that it was a very good presentation, and I particularly like the way you're trying to bring different strands of the authority together so they overlap with each other. I was going to raise similar points to Councillor Fain about Brexit and COVID, but you've answered those. So if I can go into one particular thing is about the detail, John. It's in relation to the figures you provide in the report. And I realise that some areas are easier than others to predict what's going to happen, but with some others, it is more tricky, and it's about the future, I suppose. And are you going to have targets around certain areas, John, that you're able to identify? So, for example, I noticed that Hunts Regional College are getting, I think it's £10.5 million around a particular area of work. And there you've got in the documentation, you've got what jobs will be created and what, but will you have targets that you're able to then measure about how they're performing and how that's going to happen? If you could explain a bit further, that'd be grateful, John.
Yeah, you get what you measure to a certain extent, and I'm a real fan of moving from where we've been, which is the SPEAR was great to give us lots of broad recommendations. The LIS was a strategy. What we've then done is design a whole bunch of interventions that deliver the strategy, and that's all very interesting, but you do need to measure what you do. So absolutely every intervention has got a target, and we will be held accountable for those targets. I've just done a restructure of my staffing, and I've tried to change the culture as well, in terms of we don't have normal officers running these key areas now. I've got 5 senior responsible officers that are clear. They are accountable for all the targets in their area. So, for instance, there's an SRO for Business Growth Service. He is accountable for our growth coaching that I mentioned earlier on, 3,800 jobs from there. Our growth grants, 1,500 jobs from the growth grants. Our skills brokerage, 1,800 apprenticeships over the next 3 years. Every activity has a target, and every target has a team that are accountable and responsible for it, including contractors who, for instance, the Business Growth Service, instead of delivering that from the combined authority, which I did not believe I could do and have the certainty of getting the deliverables and the outcomes. So I went to the private sector, procured it, and the successful contractor will not be paid their full fee unless they do generate the outcomes. So I've got a contract of outcomes or payment upon outcomes with them.
I think if I can just come back, Chair, if possible.
Yes, of course.
Certain areas will be easier, I think, than others, John. So the one I'm particularly, I suppose, worried about is accelerating upskilling and retraining, which is going to be far more tricky to set targets that are meaningful in the light of what Councillor Fain referred to in relation to both COVID and Brexit. And I just wonder if it'd be helpful to have, without wishing to overlay you with more detail, just a bit more on what targets are expected of that particular group under that section.
Yeah, so if we're talking skills, our skills brokerage got 1,800 apprenticeships and 1,700 other skills outcomes. That's a skills outcome that isn't an apprenticeship. We monitor using what we call leading indicators, because what I've just said is an outcome. So we meet with the skills brokerage organisation every month, and we measure how many school kids are they engaging, how many people from FE, how many people from Job Centre Plus are they engaging, what pathways are they creating for each of those different sets of people, how many employers are they engaging. We've got a contract that says the 3 ways. How many, I can't remember the word for it now, let's call it a contract. How many contracts are you creating between an FE provider, a learner, and a company, whereby there's someone who is getting trained to go into a job? So we monitor that on a monthly basis. We'll present that to the business board and the skills committee on a bi-monthly basis in terms of how we're doing against those targets. And you're right, of all of the projects I've got at the moment, the skills brokerage is probably the highest risk one, because COVID has really put pains to employers' desire to take apprentices on.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got 2 more speakers, and I'm going to need to draw this to a close because we've got 2 more presentations following this this one. So, Councillor Hay.
Thank you. Hopefully mine won't take very long. It's just a matter of clarification on the dates for the University of Peterborough. We're being told that phase 1, the completion of the build, will be June 2022. And yet phase 2, which you would expect to complete later, is completion by January 2022, 5 months ahead of phase 1. Is that correct?
Yeah, weird, isn't it? It's completely relative to the pots of funding that we got offered. We had a project, a teaching building, which was phase 1, and you're absolutely correct. To open in September 2022 for that academic year, we were finishing in June. When the Prime Minister announced his Get Building Fund, and if you remember, about 4 weeks ago, or no, about 3 months ago, we were all told to come with shovel-ready projects. The criteria was that you should be able to spend the money by January 2022. We decided together that the project we wanted to put forward with this Get Building Fund was the University Phase 2, which is a research centre. That concept of creating the skills, but also the higher quality jobs. And the criteria for that was you've got to get it spent by January 2022. So we made the project fit that. I can tell you that since government has softened that criteria, and actually we're now going to complete both in June, September 2022.
Right, thank you for that.
Thank you, and Councillor Murphy finally.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Yeah, we raised early last year some of the issues about pandemic and what we could do, and future funding's come in, and obviously we're glad there's a focus on that. I don't think we thought then that it would be carrying on and we could have consequences going into next year, but that looks like the case. Somebody's mentioned customs and the EU. I think we do need to build up some resilience and in the critical path of some of these projects, because in the overview of the presentation, it was made quite clear that a lot of the work, particularly in the south and Cambridge is international companies coming to this region. Now, clearly that could be in jeopardy. So everything will have to be looked at. Can I ask specifically about future funding for this work? I know money's come in from different government departments that's come together and we've branded it, but maybe the next 5 years, what does it look like we've got? What does it look like we might be getting, and how are we planning to do that? And could I ask that we do look a wee more at tackling some of the inequalities, because skills inequalities, health inequalities and poverty fit hand in glove. As you say, we've got some cold areas of low skills that we're trying to deal with. Yet a lot of the money seems to be going to those areas where there are less poor people, there are more wealthier people, there are more people with degrees, and there are more jobs. So I'm wondering if we could focus on that a bit more as well. I think the main question is about the future funding.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, definitely two questions there, quite different. The funding is relatively clear in my mind. I hope it's as clear in the government's mind. We've just finished our 150 mil spend on our local growth fund. I believe we will get another tranche of LGF in 2021. Without getting too complicated, the money that we just had on that Get Building fund was actually our 2021 allocation of LGF. So we got it early. I believe, and all the intel I'm getting out of Bays and MHCLG tells me they will still do an extra top up in 2021. And that will be the end of local growth fund. In April 2022, something else comes along because it's post-Brexit, and it's called the Shared Prosperity Fund. That combines the old LGF, so let's think 150 mil that we got last time, with the European funding, European Regional Development Fund and European Social Fund, which is skills, the other one's business really, and a couple of other smaller things. I'm hopeful that we'll get something between 200 and 250 million for April 2022. That's that bit. However, how much we get is totally open to how hard we lobby now. Up until Monday, I did think we had a CSR, a 3-year comprehensive spending review, and we'd put in 9 things from the combined authority and a load more through the Oxcam ARC. And basically the way to think about it is the harder we lobby now, the more will be in our Shared Prosperity Fund bag when we get it in April 2021. So making the case for brilliant projects from our economy that balance, and this is the trick, balance investing in Britain, one of Britain's biggest growth engines, Cambridge, because we are fiscally positive. So the more you invest in Cambridge, the more money you make, the more money you can spend in Hull. But also we are levelling up. We need to play that other half of the card, which is Peterborough and Fenland and parts of Huntingdonshire in the Fens that need levelling up. So we need to put brilliant programmes and proposals forward to government, which I'm working on now over this 12-month review. And then next year, we'll have another crack at the 3-year review. And hopefully we'll maximise however much money we've got in our package for 2022. The second question you asked was how do we target it when we've got it on the ground? And we really don't. We do try and get a balance between investing in really clever companies that will give us great job outcomes in the south, and they will, and we will get greater efficacy on our investment in the south in general. It's just true. But we also balance something called additionality, in that when we do create jobs, particularly higher value jobs in Peterborough and the Fens, we get much more additionality. We change the economy more. So actually, we try and balance both and not go for the easy win in the south, but try the harder ticket in the north and the east as well. So we do balance.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut things short there, but thank you very much indeed, John, for your presentation, and thank you to members for your questions, and we look forward to seeing you again before too long, I'm sure. Thank you. Members, I now have 45 minutes left in which we need 2 presentations and several other minor items. So I'm proposing to try to restrict as far as possible items 6 and 7 to no more than 15 minutes each in total, which will be a squeeze, but I hope that we can be to the point and concise and get on with it. Now, it was suggested that we would reverse items 6 and 7 because the presenter of item 6 couldn't be with us till 12:15. As it's now 12:15, do we have Noel Godfrey with us? And can
She
we
has
keep
literally just joined us, but I have already promoted Emily and
okay,
Emma
fine.
Evans,
Let's keep as we were then and promote Emily and move item 7 to ahead of item 6 then, and welcome Emily Mulvaney to give us a quick presentation on community land trusts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to committee for inviting me to speak. I'll share my screen. It says host disabled screen sharing.
I've just made you co-host, Emily.
Okay.
You should be there now, yeah?
Yeah. Okay. There we are. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
we can. Thank you.
If I can. Is it in full size?
No.
Let me see if that's.
But we can cope, I think.
Okay. There we go. So I'm going to talk briefly about community-led housing. I will try and keep it short, as I know we've already had a long presentation. What are the types of community-led housing? We actually work at the Combined Authority with all kinds of community-led housing, including almshouses, cooperatives, co-housing groups, self-help and self-build groups, local charities, but the primary type of community-led housing group that we work with is community land trusts, also known as CLTs. So I'll be focusing on community land trusts today. What is a community land trust? Essentially, it is just a way for local members of the community to get together, form a legally incorporated group in order to own land and assets on behalf of the community. However, there are 3 key principles that all types of community-led housing groups must meet. So those 3 key principles are, firstly, that there is meaningful community participation throughout the development process. So that's from the very early stages of even site selection, all the way through planning, the build, and continuing into the community stewardship side of things. The second key principle is that the community group owns, manages, or stewards the homes. And the third key principle is that there must be a true benefit to the local community, and that benefit must be legally protected forever in perpetuity. Some of the benefits of community-led development. So firstly, it delivers permanently affordable homes. CLT homes are currently exempt from the right to buy, and they will remain in community ownership as affordable homes forever. Homes are reserved for local people, so CLTs will write their own allocations policy, meeting the priorities for that local community. So whether that's people who are locally employed, people that have strong family connections to the local area, they can write their allocations policy in conjunction with the local authority to meet those very local needs. Community assets, so it's not just housing that community-led housing groups develop. They will often develop community assets alongside that, so whether that be flexible business units or a new community village hall or anything else that the community may need, they can develop alongside the housing. It allows communities genuine control and influence over developments coming forward in their area. And quite importantly, it gives a long-term income stream to be reinvested for community benefit. So in kind of your typical larger housing associations, the rental income is it's leaving the local area, it's going onto larger property portfolios, onto future developments, things like that. Whereas with a community land trust, that surplus and that kind of income stream is staying very locally in the community to be reinvested. And finally, you can bring forward additional sites that might not be of interest to larger scale developments, they might not be popular within the community, but bringing it forward as a community-led development can help to open up those additional sites. A quick note on community land trust governance. So CLTs are defined in statute, and that's the statute there if anyone's interested to look it up. They tend to be constituted as community benefit societies. They are not for profit, and all of their assets are contained within a legal asset lock. So they must always be retained for community benefit. They're registered with the FCA, Financial Conduct Authority. CLTs are governed by a board of trustees. The trustees are appointed by members, and anyone in the community can become a member for a lifetime fee of £1. So most CLTs will try and encourage as many members of the community to become members as possible. So what do we do at the Combined Authority? So we're a small team of 2 people. We've been in the Combined Authority since January, so not hugely long, and particularly since we went into lockdown in March. But what we primarily do at the moment is offer technical support to groups. So things that we can advise groups on include legal incorporation, governance, community engagement, building partnerships, so whether that's with landowners, developers, housing associations, etc., obtaining funding and their financial planning, the planning process, and the ongoing asset management. The Combined Authority has also recently set up a startup grant fund. So that's £5,000 that individual community-led housing groups can apply for. And that will pay all the costs involved in becoming a legally incorporated body. We also work directly with local authorities, which is obviously absolutely vital should any community-led housing project be successful. And we do a lot of sector enabling, so building relationships with national funders, things like that. And obviously, because we are a new team, we're still exploring other areas that we can make interventions to bring forward more community-led housing groups. So these, I've gone too far. These are the community-led housing groups we are currently working with. We're working with 20 groups in total. They are primarily CLTs, but there is also a couple of charities and a co-housing group. But they are all focusing on affordable housing for local people. You can see at the moment, most of our groups are in kind of the south of the region. So we will be focusing more on the north of the region in the future to bring forward new groups there as well. And then I'm just quickly, I think I've got a bit of time left, going to take you through some current projects that we're working on. So firstly, Streatham and Warburton CLT. They're currently working on their second CLT project. You can see on the photo in the middle, that's a photo of their first project, which is Manor Farm in Streatham. They're now working on a second development in Warburton, which just went in for planning earlier this year. So that's a scheme of 115 homes, of which 35 are affordable CLT homes, and they're also including 5 self-build. There's a lot of community assets included in that scheme that the community felt would be beneficial. So that includes a community building, some small business units that has the flexibility to potentially be a children's nursery in the future, 27 acres of public open space, which actually constitutes 60% of the site. And also you can see in this area, there's some space for potential sports pitches in the future. Another scheme we're working on is in Great Shelford with Great Shelford Parochial Charities. This one's 21 homes, they're all affordable rent. They received their planning permission in June this year. And this is a really beautiful scheme. It's been designed in this kind of circular way with a big shared green space in the middle, and the car parking is actually off to the edge of the site. So children and people can walk straight out of their front door into that kind of open green space. We've got Hadnam CLT. They're currently on site. This was a photo just from a few months ago of the trustees on site with all their masks. That's 54 homes. 19 of those are affordable CLT homes that they're making available as a mix of shared ownership and rent. This site again has a large amount of green space and larger than average gardens. And this was a really good iterative design process with the community. So there were several iterations of the scheme layout that went back to the community, went back to the architects to be amended, went back to the community. And it was real kind of community build of that plan. And then the first completions there will be June 2021. Finally, Kennet CLT. This is a big one, 500 homes, 150 of which are affordable. In conjunction with the community, this has been designed as a lower density garden style village. Something that was really troublesome to the Kennet community was they have a lot of HGVs going through the centre of the village. So the CLT asked for a new perimeter road to be put around the outside to take all of those heavy goods vehicles away from the centre of the village. There's also 30 acres of open green space, including allotments, orchards, new village greens, cycle paths, all kinds of things. New primary school buildings, a new village centre, an enterprise park, and improvements to the train station and the junction at Bellend Junction. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. That was a bit of a, managed to get it in 15 minutes, and I'll welcome any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Emily. If you could stop screen sharing now. I've literally got 4 minutes for questions. So can I see any hands going up now? Councillor Murphy, Councillor Gehring, then Councillor Fane.
Can I thank Emily for the presentation and say that I'm very enthusiastic about the work you're doing. Obviously, we can make it more complicated and we can say, what are the links with what we've just been talking about business, about getting some job creation and skills and enterprise development. But my main question is, how can we deal with the lack of support from some political leadership in the north of the county about these? I note that there is land available, NHS, MOD, former county farms, the Newtowns land in Castor, that went to a government agency. And also finally, is there a way we can get the developers more engaged? Because if developers say they want to do this, then the local council leadership might be persuaded to work with them, in whether it's in Whittlesea or Peterborough or whatever. It sounds to me this is the sort of thing that local councils used to do a generation ago, build communities. If they can't do it now, let's get behind this.
Should I take those questions now?
Yes, please, if you could.
Okay,
briefly.
so quickly on jobs, one of the benefits of community-led development is that they do tend to work with smaller local SME builders, developers, architects, so it does have that link into employment. In terms of political support, I think it's really important to reiterate that community-led development doesn't subscribe to any political party. There isn't a set model that we pursue, which I think I try to illustrate with the projects that I've shared today, is community-led development can be whatever the community needs and wants to prioritise. So I think that's really, really important. There isn't kind of a set model or one way to go about it. And with regards to developers, yes, absolutely, I agree. And that's something that we'll be doing more work on in the future, is kind of raising awareness of community-led development and trying to get more people within the sector interested in it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Gehring.
Yeah, this is it sounds to me like tremendous work that you're doing. So I just had two quick questions, and maybe it's my own lack of understanding. I understood the mayor to have said that he wanted to use these trusts also to raise funds either for the combined authority or for the Cam Metro system. It strikes me the way it's normally run that sort of generating a lot of funding from these projects would be quite difficult. And then second, I know the Combined Authority issued quite significant loans to community land trusts. How are they ever going to afford to pay back those loans to the Combined Authority?
So firstly, with regards to generating income, you're right that community land trusts don't generate a lot of income initially. They tend to have development loans, so they are using their rental income to pay back their loans and things. However, within 10, 15, 20 years, those loans will be paid off, and they will have a reliable income stream that can be reinvested in their local areas. So that's one of the big reasons why people like community-led housing over more traditional forms of affordable housing. With regards to loans, again, it's a similar thing. They will repay them over time with their rental incomes, and all the financials are always set up in such a way that we can guarantee that will be possible for them. It's also worth noting in a lot of the schemes, there is an element of open market housing which is sold. So that really helps the financial viability and allows CLTs to bring those affordable homes forward.
Thank you. And Councillor Fain.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I very much endorse what other councillors said about the importance and the benefits of this work. I noticed you referred to other interventions to bring forward CLTs. I wonder to what extent you've considered working with neighbourhood plans. Cambridge has been rather slow to take up neighbourhood plans, and sadly quite a few of them have sort of ground to a halt. And an issue they've always found particularly difficult to address has been affordable housing, even though that's often the initial concern which raises it, particularly in South Cambridgeshire, where of course affordability is a particular problem. And I just wonder whether one of the interventions that you might be considering relates to persuading neighbourhood plans or assisting neighbourhood plan groups in adopting the CLT model, where that can help them to deliver affordable housing.
Yeah, so at the moment, we don't directly advise on neighbourhood plans, although we do have colleagues in other organisations that will support neighbourhood plans, and we can always help groups to work with them. Neighbourhood plans actually can be a catalyst for new community-led housing groups to come forward. So there are a couple of groups that I'm working with at the moment, and they came forward as a result of neighbourhood planning. So I agree the two go hand in hand, and we'll always try and support groups in that process as well.
Thank you. And Councillor Miscandlin is the last question.
Thank you very much. On the subject of neighbourhood plans, Fenland District Council at the moment, we are doing the review of our neighbourhood plan for Fenland. So it might be helpful if your information and data could be forwarded to the chair of the neighbourhood plan revising group, which is Councillor D. Laws, to assist in that, because if it can be incorporated in it, we would be quite happy to do so. We're going through the process at this moment in time.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'll definitely take you up on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I've just got one thing that I want to say at the end, by perhaps by way of a question, but certainly I think these schemes are wonderful schemes where they genuinely have community support. And I think the genuineness of the community support and the genuineness of community benefit is vital. However, at least two of the schemes that you've covered in your presentation, as you know, the Wilburton one and the Kennet one, have been enormously locally controversial. And I think that the extent to which they can be said to have genuine community support is highly open to question and to interpretation. So while I can see the benefit of this, I would urge members to be very cautious about situations in which these schemes are put forward with in situations of great controversy and without perhaps some of the overwhelming community support that is sometimes claimed. And I'm happy for you to respond briefly to that, Emily, if you wish, or to leave well alone if you wish.
Well, I'll respond briefly just to say that all community land trusts are completely led by local people that live within their communities, and they are governed by a membership base, of which everyone in the membership base is a local person. So I take your point that, you know, development can be controversial and you're very unlikely to have any development that everyone agrees with, but these are locally led. They're not there's no one else pushing them forward. So you would hope that that in itself is self-governing.
Thank you, Emily. I've made my point and I won't press you any further on that, but thank you very much indeed for your presentation and for attending this morning. Thank you, members, for your questions. We are now moving on to item 6, well, now 7, but was 6, which is Noel Godfrey, and I'm very short of time. Are members able to hang on until, say, 1:10 if we have to, just to make sure that Noel isn't limited to 5 minutes or something that doesn't enable her to say what she wants to say? Yeah. Okay. So is Noel with us now?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Hello, Noel. Thank you
Hello.
very much indeed for joining us.
Hello.
So if you'd like to launch straight in, as I've explained, we're slightly against the clock, but keen to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. I don't have an actual presentation this morning, but members will have seen there was a covering report that highlighted the report that went to the June Housing and Communities Committee, which included a number of recommendations, but also had quite a comprehensive update on the current work streams within the digital connectivity programme. I thought that I would just kind of highlight the key points and then open up for questions, because there is actually an awful lot of detail, and I can give detail in different areas, but I realise you are short of time. I suppose the key things that the covering report sort of highlighted was that as part of the Keeping Everyone Connected work stream, which is focusing on COVID-19 response and recovery, because of course one thing that's really been highlighted in the pandemic is the huge importance of digital connectivity. It's highlighted and increased that need for connectivity for businesses, but also for communities. I mean, all aspects of current life, really. So highlights that work stream, and also the fact that as part of that, we've actually now launched the gigabit connectivity top-up vouchers for those people in very rural areas to help speed up their access to full fibre connectivity, but also to flag that the public access Wi-Fi service in Huntingdonshire is being deployed at the moment. It was launched in St Neots a few weeks ago. It's being rolled out in St Ives this week, and it's nearly completed in Littleport. And I think the only other thing to flag is that the as highlighted in the committee report, there is an application going into using residual EU funding to support businesses in their use, small businesses in their use, take up of digital technologies, and that application has now been submitted and is being reviewed by MHCLG. I suppose the only other point I'd say is that in the appendix to the report that went to the Housing Committee, there's detail across each of the different areas. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of those areas, wherever you'd like to focus your questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Noel. That was extremely effective use of time to guide us through that. So thank you enormously. Members, questions? I see Councillor Hay wishing to speak.
Yes, please. I remember in June 2019 seeing a newspaper article saying public access Wi-Fi was coming to Fenland, but I've not heard anything since. And in 2.5 of your report, it mentions East Cambridgeshire, it mentions Huntingdonshire, but nothing at all about Fenland.
Yeah, the public access Wi-Fi solution that has been determined to be the optimum one. Actually utilises the CCTV networks, which by and large the district councils have, brings in connectivity to the internet through the county council and actually utilises that. And so any sort of rollout of that connectivity needs to be signed up and agreed by the relevant district council, as well as by the combined authority as the funding body and in fact the county council. The discussions are still ongoing for sign off with Fenland leadership, and that's ready to go if and when the leadership are happy to sign that off.
Thank you for that. As a Fenland councillor, I'll take that up at Fenland then.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miscanlon.
Thank you very much. As a lot of people will know, that the connectivity of Wi-Fi within the rural areas of Fenland are a joke. And I mean a real joke. Where I live, I can't get fibre, yet at the end of my drive, there's a fibre box. And I can't get connected to it, despite BT saying they will connect me at some time. So offering free Wi-Fi to people within the towns, I think is a joke, because what you're doing, you're saying to the people in the rural area, you don't count, because we're going to give it to the towns, and that's right. But the rural areas are still paying the same price for inefficient, joke rendering Wi-Fi as the people in the towns that can currently use Wi-Fi to a greater extent than what we can. My Wi-Fi goes down all the time. I can take anything up to 6 hours to send a Wi-Fi message across to my wife's computer. So where's it all going? Because it certainly isn't coming out here.
Would you like me to respond to those different aspects of that question?
Yes, please, yes, by all means.
Yeah, so I suppose I think there's a couple of points here. So the Wi-Fi that people have in their homes is delivered through their whatever broadband contract they have, and one of the key work streams is making sure that people have access to that choice and that update, which is why, for example, we have the rural gigabit voucher scheme, so people in the most rural areas can get better access to fast connectivity. We also still have the super fast broadband rollout program going on, which is intervening at the infrastructure element. So there's several different ways in which we're helping to support that increased connectivity. The public access Wi-Fi services is free public access for people, for example, in the market towns and other areas. Sorry, I apologize. I should have mentioned that we've also been rolling out to around 40 or so rural village halls, and this was with some funding that came through health. So that hasn't been directly reported. That's not been directly funded by the CPCA workstream, but it's been funded by from health to look at those areas. 40 initially of the more rural village halls. And that's been rolled out. I can send the details to anyone who's interested of the areas that's covered. We are also seeking further government funding to extend that to some more village halls, but we don't yet know whether that's we don't know whether our funding bid will be successful yet. So there's different aspects to this. There's public access Wi-Fi for people sort of out and about or in village halls and other areas, and then there's what people can do, how they can access updated broadband services in their own home. We do.
You appear to have muted yourself, Noel.
Sorry,
Oh,
we do have advice on our website, the Connecting Cambridgeshire website, about what people can do to upgrade, and if there are areas where the infrastructure is not currently available, what plans are in place to improve it. So I would ask, I would encourage people to do that and to contact us if it's not clear how and when you can upgrade and what the options are for yourself.
Thank you very much, Noel. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Noel, for a really interesting report. I'm just actually wondering about the impact of COVID-19, because what we've learned from this is that the reliance on Wi-Fi is enormous. And I'm thinking particularly about the school children. And what I'm wondering is, how do schools get access to Wi-Fi, number one? And is it through the service that the county provides, or are the schools, because I think they're all academies now, responsible for their own Wi-Fi? But secondly, would you like to expand on any impact that COVID-19 has had on the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so to take the point about schools, the county council is the contract holder for a connectivity contract. It's known as EastNet, which actually aggregates all of those requirements, and schools are able to buy into it. And most Cambridgeshire and some Peterborough schools have certainly done that. But of course, one of the impacts of the pandemic has been that actually having connectivity in schools alone isn't enough, and children need access from home. That has been a real issue, of course, and it's been an issue that's been flagged by government as well. The County Council's Education ICT service that supports schools has been working as part of the government initiative to provide connectivity to those children who don't have it at home. And so, for example, a number of laptops with 4G routers were distributed earlier on this year. It's probably fair to say that it's not enough, and it's not really getting to all the children who need connectivity. And so, for example, part of the keeping everyone connected work stream, we're working with social housing providers to try to encourage them to ensure that the digital infrastructure is available to their residents, because at the moment, actually, availability is very low, and there will be more children who struggle to connect at home because of that. So it's actually, yes, it's really important for schools to have that connectivity, but it's also a broader issue about making sure that all communities, all residents have access to connectivity. Sorry, your second question. Sorry, can you just remind me your second point was?
Well, it was just really the COVID-19, the pandemic in general.
We can't hear you, Jocelyn. Could you sort your microphone out?
Is it working now?
That's better. That's better.
Oh, great. Thank you. I was just wondering about the general impact of COVID-19 and the pandemic, and what impact that's had on the work that you're specifically doing. And if I could just put in an additional little question, are you aware of what decision making went into that which ended up having some students having computers and so on and access? Because I'm just wondering what the decision-making process was that went round who got them, because we know that there are children without them, that was all. But that may not be within your bailiwick, I'm not sure. Thank you.
Yeah, to answer that latter point, first, no, it's certainly not something that we've had any involvement in, and I understand the discussion. You know, that those decisions were made within DfE and then communicated to the Education ICT Service and to individual schools. I think there was a lot of discussion with schools. So we were asked to advise and support on the connectivity aspects, but we don't have any visibility of how those decisions were made. Going back to your point about the impact of the pandemic, I mean, obviously it's been considerable. As we know, it's highlighted that need for connectivity. I mean, just for example, access to health services now is highly dependent on having access to the internet, and it didn't, you know, a year ago it didn't used to be the case. So it's just become the sort of the key point of contact for everybody. The starting point is through the internet. So it has really highlighted the importance. It's highlighted how many people, for whatever different reason, are, you know, more people, how people are excluded from it, and the different work streams that we have to support in order to address that. So it has, the impact of the pandemic has impacted on the delivery of the programme, which is why, as I said, we've started this sort of separate work stream around keeping everyone connected to make sure that we are addressing those points of digital exclusion from the infrastructure level. I mean, there are different aspects to digital exclusion. We're focusing on the access to the infrastructure as opposed to skills, and you know, it's quite a complex issue, digital inclusion, but we're focusing on the infrastructure side, and we are amending and changing the programme to react to that.
Thank you very much. And finally, I've got a few questions for you, Noel, as well. Firstly, the report says that the superfast and full fibre coverage targets will be reviewed towards the latter end of 2020. Have we got reviewed and revised targets yet on that?
No, we haven't. One of the things we wanting to try to do is link it in with the government targets, but that's something that's actually not very clear at the moment. I mean, there were initial targets for gigabit capable connectivity, 100% gigabit capable connectivity by 25-26, but we haven't actually had an update from government, so it's difficult for us to revise our local targets at the moment. But I think we are going to have to kind of go ahead and do that. And one of the reasons for revising the full fibre target is because I think we're going to exceed the target. Our original target for full fibre was to exceed 30% by 2022. We're already for the area over 23%. So we are really doing quite well on that. And I think we need a stretch target to raise the bar higher. So even if we don't get confirmation of new targets from government, I think we will be moving ahead with proposing revised targets.
Thank you. My second question of 3 was, I don't know if I'm the only one who's found the procedure for trying to sort out your own connectivity if you're not automatically in a commercial rollout quite complex and confusing compared to, for example, the recent piece of work that Cambridgeshire County Council has embarked on with support from some of the districts towards getting people to install solar panels and batteries, where there's a company called iChooser that helps local authorities to crowd buy this sort of thing and sets up a very simple procedure where you say, I'm interested, potentially count me in, this is what I've got, this is what I need, and then having got that, you then get iChooser organizes a auction to procure what people want. They've accumulated the need, there's an auction, and then you get your individual quotes, which you can accept or not. I wondered whether it was possible to see a way forward to making the whole procedure for getting something where you know you're not going to get it by normal commercial rollout easier and more straightforward. That's my second question.
I think that's a really good point, and of course it's also true that happens with energy switching, and there are websites which can help to identify the best deal for broadband connectivity. part of the complexity is to do with the way the market responds. So people will be in contract for with providers. So it's not quite as straightforward as purchasing new solar panels, for example. And I think the final point is that actually the setup that people have in their own homes can hugely impact the way that the connectivity works. And there is an element of complexity there. Having said that, we can certainly look at liaising back with DCMS, who are the government, they're the government department overseeing this area, to understand if there is, and also talk to people in our peers in other areas to see what has been done to try and support that kind of approach. I'm not aware that that's being done anywhere yet, and certainly we will investigate it. I don't know how easy it will be to take that forward, but we can certainly investigate.
Thank you. It'd be great to be a pathfinder for that. And thirdly, I'm not sure if I'm the only person present to have come across the problem of rogue OpenReach teams in my patch, who seem to be going ahead installing posts and so on with absolutely no reference whatsoever to the local planning authority, as they are required by law to do under permitted development rights. And I wondered whether you were aware that this was a problem anywhere else. I mean, clearly we want to encourage, more broadband, better broadband, and so on. But the rogue outreach, the rogue OpenReach team that I've got in my area and nearby has been causing me considerable amounts of work trying to resolve that. And OpenReach seemed to be completely uncontactable.
Yeah, I'm aware of the issue that you've raised, certainly. And the only other place that we have had similar queries is in Cambridge. And in fact, just to be fair, that's City Fibre rollout as opposed to OpenReach. And again, that's being investigated. It is quite it sounds easy, but it's not. It's quite complex because it's what falls within permitted developments. And that has been a changing situation. So I think all we can do is make sure that we do sort of kind of push to investigate as quickly as possible. But I share your frustration that it's actually quite difficult to get the responses from the operators. Doesn't mean we're not going to try, but it's difficult.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And I've got one last question briefly from Councillor Davey.
It was a very brief comment, Councillor Dupree, and also to Noel, is that City Fibre have been a nightmare to deal with in Cambridge. And the issue is actually as much to do with communication to residents. So if there's a learning at all about how we communicate or how the providers communicate, that'd be really great to take that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you to Noel for your presentation, introduction and comments. So thank you enormously all. Let us move on with all due speed then, if we may, to item 8, which is separate to the main agenda pack and additional to it, which is an update from the Task and Finish group. Robert, do you want to say anything about what's required as a result of this report?
The main requirement, of course, Councillor Price was the chair of the Task and Finish group. It was midway through the Task and Finish group meeting we had last Tuesday or Wednesday, whichever day that was, Councillor Scaring and Price, that we were notified of Councillor Price's resignation. So obviously we need at least one new member of the Task and Finish group, because when it started out there were 5 members. We are now down to 3. So obviously more members would be very beneficial in terms of the work moving forward, because if we ever have apologies or whatever, then we could potentially down to 1 or 2 members attending Task and Finish group meetings, and that's the situation we had last week. So if Chair, you could ask people to put their names forward and step forward to be members of the Task and Finish group, that would be an excellent starting point. And the report itself just updates members of where the Task and Finish group is now following that last meeting last week, and that there'll be further meetings coming forward, and the next one will be towards the end of November.
Marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. So we have 5 members at the, well, we had 5 members, we have lost 2. It would be good to have a couple more members back on there. Councillor Gehring and then Councillor Davey.
Just to reiterate that the group has become much more active since the summer break. We had regular meetings. There's a lot of activity on the One CAM project that now links, hopefully in a better way, with the Greater Cambridge Partnership. And there's quite a bit of information that we've requested. And so I would encourage all members to think creatively whether they wouldn't want to join us. It's an active kind of group and discussion, and I'm expecting that we'll have quite a bit of work between now and April, May.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Gehring. Councillor Davey.
Just simply to volunteer, so Robert's got my name. Thank you.
Thank you, that's excellent news. Councillor Chamberlain.
Similarly, Chair, I'm quite happy to volunteer if required.
Okay, thank you. Will we, and Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, just very quickly reiterating what Councillor Gehring's just saying, that we met last week. There was unfortunately only 2 of us because Councillor Price had resigned, and obviously Councillor Scott couldn't make it. So it's great that we've got volunteers coming forward, but I think the group has got a lot of work to do in the next few months, and as Robert says, we're hoping to meet towards the end of November.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Sharp. So we have 2 volunteers to fill those 2 places, Councillors Davey and Chamberlain. Are members happy for us to approve those 2 as members, additionally to the 3 remaining, Councillors Gehring, Sharp and Scott?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Excellent. Now I see 2 hands up, Councillor Sharp and Gehring. Are they legacy hands? I think they are.
Just to ask whether I had misunderstood, but I thought Councillor Fain was also interested in the CAM project.
Right, okay. Councillor Fain?
Yes, I did suggest earlier I'd volunteer, but I'm very happy for Councillors Chamberlain and David to take it on. I don't think we need to make this too large a group.
Right, okay. In that case, if we leave it at the 5 now for the moment, and see how that goes, I'm sure we can add additional members if that proves problematic. But thank you very much, Councillors Davey and Chamberlain, for joining the group, and it will elect its chair at its prior to its next meeting. So there we go. Thank you very much indeed for that, everyone. Item 9 is the Combined Authority Forward Plan. There isn't a board meeting this month, so there's no opportunity for us to ask questions. I'm in liaison with the lead members who will be discussing the various items going to committee and formulating questions from those as well. So I don't think there's anything more that we need to say on this item, unless anybody tells me otherwise by indicating. No? Okay, thank you. Then we have our own work programme. Now that seems somewhat heavy in December, and I'm therefore minded to suggest that we move 1 or 2 of the items around, and in particular that we move the Combined Authority Director Delivery and Strategy from December to February, which will give us more time in December to consider the other items there. I think for the moment that's the only change we need to consider making, unless there are other suggestions. Councillor Hay.
Yes, I've noticed that the Bus Review Task and Finish Group is due to come to us in February. So what I would request of officers, if they could facilitate a meeting between officers of the Combined Authority and the Task and Finish Group prior to that, and if it's at all possible to give us a timeline of when it's actually going to go to the Combined Authority Board. because obviously we'd like our meeting before it goes to the Combined Authority Board. Thank you.
That seems eminently sensible. Thank you, Councillor Hay. And I'll leave officers to liaise with members of the bus working group about the next meeting before it comes to February, and to advise on the timeline. So are we, with those changes, the insertion of a bus review working group meeting and the moving of the director delivery and strategy from December to February, are we content with our work programme? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. In which case, I think the only thing remaining is to say that our next meeting is on Monday, the 23rd of November at 11 a.m. and again via the Zoom platform. Councillor Gehring wanted to say something. I thought we were into the home straight, but there we are. Councillor Gehring.
Sorry, just under any other business. First of all, can I invite officers to reconvene the task and finish group for the CAM as soon as possible with this new membership. We don't have a chair at the moment, so that needs to be maybe put on record. And second, I think it's appropriate to formally record our thanks to Councillor Price, who was, after all, our vice chair, who served this committee for almost 2 years, and who was chair of the task and finish group and has done a really good job in that.
Thank you very much, Marcus. That's an excellent suggestion, and I'd be grateful if officers could draft something to send off on behalf of this committee, thanking Councillor Price or former Councillor Price for his services. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to add my thanks to Councillor Price too, and thank Councillor Gehring indeed for the remarks that he's made, and also that yes, it is an extremely active group, and I can only apologise that I wasn't at the last meeting, though as you know I've attended all the meetings up until that time. It was an oversight. I have no other excuse than that, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Scott. And finally, Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to echo Councillor Gehring and Councillor Scott's comments about Councillor Kevin Price. Found him a very good person to work with. And
agree.
Okay, yeah, indeed. I think we are all agreed on that. So if we could put something together to send to him by way of a words of appreciation, that would be gratefully received. So I think that concludes our business for today, in which case, thank you very much, members. Thank you, officers, and thank you to everybody who's presented to us today in what I think has been a very informative meeting. So with
Thank
that,
you, Laura.
I'll close the meeting. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for
Thank you all.
chairing.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.